Hello, welcome to the Headhunter Hideout. This is your host, Joel Lalji from Hoxo Media. For anyone who doesn't know me, welcome to the live show here. I would love to see who's out there. So if you're out there, why don't you get into the chat? Let us know where you're coming from, your name. Well, that will pop up anyway. And then if you've got questions today, feel free to type those into the chat and we'll address them. But welcome to Kortney Harmon. She's our guest today. We're super excited to have her on the show, and it's kind of like a little reunion in some ways here. But I'll have Kortney introduce herself, and then we'll get into our conversation here. But Kortney, why don't you say hi to everybody and just give a quick background here, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. My name, obviously, Kortney Harmon. I am the Director of Development and Communications at Talent Launch. Talent Launch is really a network of independently operated staffing firms under a common ownership. So we really have deep roots in our community, and my department's job is to really help develop curriculum for new hires coming in, develop managers, and really just commit to the purpose of inspiring people to their full potential. So that's where we are. Been here going on a year, and really excited to where that potentially can go.
I love it. So why don't you give us a little background on how you got into the training and development, and how you made that transition from recruitment and running a desk and working with clients. How did you fall into the training and development area? I'd love to hear that.
I mean, everybody gets into recruiting whenever they grow up. They're like, I want to be a recruiter, right? No.
Everybody. Especially Krista, who is out there. I'll say hi to Krista. I know she grew up. She was like, I want to be a recruiter, and now she is. So
absolutely. I did not say that. However, I did run a desk. I came out of college with an elementary education background. So I was licensed preschool through third grade. How I got to teaching and training businesses as a process we always get here. I had gone through that training program with learning. There was no teaching jobs in my area. So I became a long-term sub, and then I was an athletic director for 5 years. Sports is running my blood, always very super competitive. The school that I was working at, their levy was going to fail, and my job was on one of the ones on the chopping block. So I had someone reach out to me that had an applicant tracking system, PCR, for those of you in the recruiting world. Some of you might know it. I had that experience going through college, just working at a side firm, and a company reached out and said, hey, will you teach our organization how to run this program? You have a teaching background, you have this background. Can you mush them together and do something for us? And being the competitive person that I was, I instantly jumped in to say, I can do this. So there's extra money to be made. I wanted to do that. So I actually ran an IT recruiting desk, was there, and then ended up mushing those two backgrounds, my training and recruiting, after I was there for a period of time. And I was able to help, and I went to MRI Network, and that's where you and I met. And we got to the point that I was training people how to do their job. So it was like the perfect blend of both worlds, because education and learning is something I'm so passionate about. But again, we always get here to this recruiting thing that nobody even knew was an industry, to say, how do I do this really well, and how do I become successful at it? So now at where we are here at Talent Launch, we're helping develop curriculum for new hires. We're helping people go from their first 6 months of success and production to how do I become an effective manager? How do I get a certification? So we're really taking them full life cycle in their recruiting career alone.
Yeah, I love that. And I think training and development, I know a lot of times when I'm having these conversations, it seems to really be what separates firms that grow really, really well and are really, really healthy, and then the companies and firms that really struggle. It really does a lot of times come down to how you're bringing people into your culture, how you're bringing them into the industry as well. So I'm curious, like, just from a point of view of what you see from people who are really successful, because obviously you've seen lots of people come into the industry, and then you've probably seen a lot of people also drop out. What are some of the things that commonalities that you've seen in people that are coming into the industry, that do well compared to those that don't do well? Like, what are some of those kind of common areas and common themes that you've witnessed?
I really truly think learning how they're set up in success is first off important. And that's where my focus is for where we are. So many people in operating companies or companies alone, they're saying, oh, come in, sit with this top producer. You're going to do good because they know what they're doing. In reality, that doesn't teach them how to do a job. So with today's day and age and technology, what it is, we want to do micro learnings. We want to do short bursts. We want them to have a repeatable, scalable process that they can go back to say, I learned that. Where did I get it? Where can I go back to it? So the streamline of information in one solid place is important. Micro learnings is important. But then obviously, just to be a recruiter, you have to have the drive of the retainment from the fire hose you're drinking from for those first few weeks to competitive nature. I mean, it kind of breaks down into two different sides. Prior to the hire, if your curriculum is set up for success versus you as a person with your characteristics. What is your drive? What is your culture? What is your accountability? Is really where you make it or break it.
For sure. What about, in terms of this remote kind of environment that, everybody's jumping on? How have you been adapting what you teach and like how you're even coaching the agency owners that you work with? How are you kind of coaching them on how to bring new people in these remote environments where they're not necessarily just able to hear lots of the conversations that are going on? Like how have you guys changed and adapted your way of bringing people on with remote environments?
It's a great question. I really, truly think where we are as our service department here at Talent Launch with DevCom, which is Development Communications, I think it's kind of been seamless for our department since not only, number one, we're across the board. We have people in Connecticut, New York, a few people here in Ohio in different regions. But I think how that is applied to other operating companies, I think is, okay, how do we make this scalable? Again, the idea of it's not really different, but you have to create those experiences that they would have walking past someone to hear something that, hey, I really should say that, or I really liked how they talked, to still create those experiences for those remote workers. So within our training, we have live role plays, we have situationals, there is something that you like, something that you change, really being able to hear people that not only aren't in your industry, not only that aren't in your state, but to be able to hear how I could apply it in other areas, I think is really super important. I think onboarding for operating companies themselves has been streamlined too, to say, we do something in our office is an onboarding book. It's essentially a virtual, think of a Kindle. You get the books, you open it up, but it's an interactive book that takes them all the places that they need to go. They don't need to have all the individual links. They don't need to have all the individual, this link is for this, this link is for this, but this one streamlined process. So for operating companies and companies alone to think about streamlining your process, how can you make it repeatable? How can you make sure all the information is in the right places at the right time for your people is really crucial, because they're going to come back to you. They're going to say, wow, hey, this is all put together really nice, and really show your culture probably to the fullest extent that it could be.
Yeah. I love that. I think that was one of the kind of the big concerns for obviously a lot of companies is just like, how are we going to bring people on, especially in recruitment, because you learn so much from conversations that are happening around the office, for example, and like how do you replicate that when you don't have the in-office experience as much is a huge deal. What have you seen as far as changes over the last year? So just thinking about a year ago, which was probably right around when you were training me. And I remember in that training, like we talked a lot about persevering through a difficult market and how hard it was to find and kind of break into a market during the COVID-19, like the start of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a year later, it just seems like the landscape has completely flipped on its head. And now you could argue that it's easy to find jobs, not as easy to find candidates. So what is that? What kind of changes have you seen in terms of how those conversations have been with people who are entering into the recruitment space? Like what has changed in over the past year in terms of how you're prepping people to be successful in this current business environment?
Yeah, I really think it depends on what side of the house you're on. Like if you're in the community, light industrial, metro space, that's where that is completely flipped. You're right. Talent is hard to find. What are you doing differently? What are you doing as a salesperson to say, how do I attract the most talent? How do I overcome those objections? That is the biggest thing we're seeing. I don't necessarily know if that's as common for the professional or executive recruiting space. They're probably a little different challenges depending where you are, but you are absolutely right. Talent is hard to find. So teaching the value of how to have those conversations couldn't be more crucial than it is today, to say it's not a matter of if this happens, if government funding ends, it's a matter of when. How can you create your value? How do you teach them your talent that you're working with to say, this is why you need to get ahead of the curve? But you are absolutely right. Talent is the hardest thing to find right now. And it's really diving into how can we speak to them? How can we motivate them? How can we get them ahead of the game?
Yeah, 100%. It's so crazy. I remember in that class like a year ago, you were like, yeah, basically just saying like, this time isn't going to last forever, and you got to persevere. And then I just think about how like a year later, I mean, everybody I talk to right now is really busy with jobs. They've got lots of work. I think the big challenge has been finding candidates, but then also finding candidates for your recruitment agency. And it seems like recruiters are in really hot demand as well.
Yeah.
What have you guys been doing to attract talent towards the agencies that you're working with? Like how have you guys been adapting to bring in those top quality recruiters as well?
You mentioned culture. Culture is so important. Our culture here at Talent Launch really focuses on the redwood tree. So it's really about pillars and values. And we really speak to those. It's not just something that's up on the wall whenever you come in. We really attest to those. But the other thing is working in this remote world. You have the flexible workforce. You have the idea to certain companies. Ours recently went to unlimited PTO.
Talk to me about that. How does unlimited PTO work? How do you guys work that?
Yeah, it's called something we launched called Refuel and Relaunch. So it's really those people that are taking the time to work really hard. It's rewarding them. It's making it a cognizant thing to say, well, it's not you work here for a year and you get 2 weeks, but you do have to have obviously the approval of your manager. So there's still hoops that you have to jump through. But I think it really rewards the value of the person that's working for you. So I think that's great. It's probably hard in a management style to say, hey, we're really trying to get these initiatives done. So let's focus on that. But I think it's a different challenge. It's on this side. But I think it's really nice for our employees to see that value and bring that to them. So that has been great. Technology has been one of the key focuses that our operating companies have really dove in. Our operating companies have amazing reporting. They have latest, greatest tools. We use Google Suite. I'm still working on that one. But the abilities, the nuances that we have, all the technologies that plug into these things are really a game changer for people that, you used to have to say, all right, I'm going to go send a text message to all these people one off, or I'm going to have to go send a mass video message to everybody. But there's campaigns through Sense and all the other amazing tools that we have. I really wish I had whenever I was running a desk. So we have some amazing things to pick those top talent, but then to be able to retain them and keep them. We're also the new training that we're offering, as well as the ASA certification. We're really honing in on that to be able to provide their tools and experience beyond 1 year in the network. And we're just continuing that growth, career pathing, and much, much more next year.
Wow. I love it. Well, why don't we've got Chris just said he's in Beaver Creek, Ohio. Is that close to where you're at?
No, I believe that's down by Cincinnati. So he's still about 3 hours from me. So I'm more close to Canton.
I thought it was just a local Ohio thing that people was saying.
I got all my cronies and we're all here.
Well, we got Krista here as well. Krista is just really great as well. If you're connected with her on LinkedIn, we've got Nikanj here as well. And then Kendra said, my company does this, and she was referring to the unlimited PTO as well. Okay, so I think one of the big things when I think of recruitment agencies and kind of where they have a challenge in terms of retaining people, especially new hires. Are you guys bringing in people at full desk, or are they split desk? Like what model have you seen working more, and have you had to change that full desk model at all to attract people, out of curiosity?
We actually, that's a great question. We actually have a few different models depending on what operating company you're with here in the network. We actually just recently launched in January called T-Hub, Talent Hub, and that's a talent acquisition center. We essentially do all the sourcing for certain operating companies or participating operating companies, and we've really found high volume candidates and talents being able to send to our operating companies with ease. So that's something new that we haven't done before, but we're really seeing a lot of success with.
So that's like centralized, almost centralized sourcing and
Correct.
research, and then oh wow, I love that. That's massive.
The support is amazing. We have heard certain operating companies that try to do that on a smaller scale level. We're still working through some kinks, but that team has been amazing to really work with the operating companies to see, what do you need? How do you need it? Where are we missing the mark? But then just make them more scalable to be able to work through the detailed interview process or the submittals, or working with the clients to be able to come back to say, hey, I need more of these, more like this one right here. So that has been pretty awesome. There are some people, our executive branch, they have the opportunity to be able to run full desks. But we do have separate swim lanes, all depending if they use that T-Hub option as well. So there is the recruiting side, sales side, some full desk, and account management.
So when you obviously you brought a lot of people into the industry, to me, like, full desk, I think is extremely challenging, and I think it was probably, I don't want to say it was easier years ago, but in some ways I think it nowadays, with all of the technology, with all of the access to data, with all of the competition as well, to me, like, the business development and then the recruiting, and it's a lot. So do you think we're going to see less of that and in the future, and more kind of split desk models? Like, what's your, and it's just personal opinion, it doesn't have to be anything that your company use. What do you
personally
think?
love the split desk model, just because it's to the point that you become, it's not only your niche, it's what you're good at, it's what you can juggle. You say full desk and you're like, oh, it's kind of a lot. It is. It's a lot to keep track of. Are you really giving the clients all the attention you need versus the candidates you give your attention that you need?
Yeah.
Number one complaint from candidates is recruiters call too much. Number two complaint from candidates is they don't call enough, because they get what they want and then they never follow up. So to be able to do your job really well, and this is just my opinion, is I believe in the two skill sets. I don't say that there shouldn't be overlap. There's the recruiting skill set as well as the sales skill set.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we teach this. And even our operating companies, they can float into this. Well, Talent Hub, they fit into recruiting. They should know all the recruiting skills. If you're an account manager, you kind of own both. So you go into both. So I think our model of teaching those two swim lanes are really great. And I think that's probably where a lot of people find their sweet spots as they go forward, because they can really be that specialty person in that niche of recruiting or sales.
Yeah, I mean, I think even from a company standpoint too, when it comes to, obviously, non-competes are massive in our industry, and I think if you're working more from a team approach, then you don't have to worry about that necessarily as much, because you've got the sales function, which is building the new relationships. Yeah. You've got the recruiters that are executing. It does seem to make a lot more sense. So what would you look for in, compare, like, a salesperson compared to somebody who is maybe in that recruitment / account management seat? Like, what are some of the core differences that you've seen in people coming through your training that would separate the two disciplines?
I think someone that can cold call, that can open the doors, someone that can blow the doors off of a company. I mean, I'm the person all day long and I can manage your account, but my specialty may not be picking up the phone and getting rejected. I mean, this industry is a lot of rejection in reality. Someone that can persevere through that, can they make those amount of calls that they need to in a day? Because let's face it, the phone is not dead in our industry. Just as much as there is so many different ways to get to the phone, that doesn't mean that it still doesn't exist. Phone is where persuasion happens. So it's how to persevere through that. Someone that's account management is really attention to detail. Let me nurture. Let me be able to give them everything they need, the attention that they want to feel, that warmth, that specialty touch, right? But I really think that's where it differentiates, to say, touch and go to get the next. And that is a special person. That is not everybody. Not everybody does not have that cold call, run through walls kind of personality. So I really think those are the difference between the two.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I think with, the phone, obviously I'm really big on digital and creating those relations digitally, but the goal is always to get people onto the phone. You're not going to get many placements if you're just DMing people, if you're just emailing them. You want to get people to the phone. And I think nowadays, I do outbound and cold calling all the time, mix it up with obviously marketing and inbound as well. But it's just understanding that different people, they want to be reached different ways as well. I think things like text messaging are really, really powerful as well. But it's looking at, okay, who are you trying to reach, and what's the easiest way to reach them? And I do think that the phone is powerful as well. So if you guys then with that split model, then do you have pretty high retention when it comes to like that success in the first year, or is that still a struggle? Like, what are some of those challenges with getting people to that first year in recruitment where they've had a successful first year?
That's a great question. That's something that we're actually focused on right now. That's where we just launched the certification of the ASA. So we're actually going to commit to purchasing your certification, helping you study for that membership. So if you're going to stay in this industry, that's a notch in your tool belt. That's something to be able to say, all right, you've got through 6 months. You know to kind of know what you're doing. You have the ability to get additional training. But now that you're here, let's sharpen that tool. Let's sharpen that saw to be able. So we are offering the certification to anyone that's been in our network within a year. That's something that we're investing in all of our people, celebrate their successes. I think that's not something that every company does as much as they could do. And I think we're getting really good at that, owning that communications piece, but celebrating those people that have got their certifications, kind of bragging about them, giving them something in the digital world, helping them put it on their featured list of their profile, something to brag about is great. So they can show the type of work that they represent and the type of company. So that's something that we're actively working on. I don't really have a lot of data behind it, but I know that's a struggle in our industry alone. So that's why we actually just launched the certification piece as of July this year. So it's super new for us. And it's really an endeavor we're putting a lot of effort towards to think through to ensure retention within our organizations.
Why do you think, just in general, why do you think that it is such a challenge for recruitment agencies, just in general? This is across the board, and I get this all the time when I'm talking to owners of agencies. It just seems to be across the board. Anticipating or predicting somebody's success in the industry is just so challenging. Like, why do you think that is? Or maybe that you haven't experienced that, and if so, that's totally fine.
I've experienced it for sure. I think we all have if we've been in this industry. Where do I think the gap might be is what I'm hearing from the people that I talk to is really that defined career pathing. Some people, they felt like they've been ramped up. They feel like they're doing good. They feel like they're doing good in a production role. And you as a manager, you're like, hey, I have a good production person. But they're really wanting to know what's next. So as an organization, really thinking through, do I have that structure to say, how do they get to a manager, how to get to a leader, how to get to the second in command, VP, whatever that role looks like, but really breaking down the career pathing to say, here's what you can work to, here's what the expectations are, here's what the metrics are to support that, and then how to get about that. I think that's where a lot of people might be missing the mark, and something that we're putting a lot of effort into in the 2022 year. But really spelling it out for people, because there are a lot of people that are like, all right, what's next? They just want more and more and more. And not that that's a bad thing, but we really need to lay that out for them in a more strategic way.
Yeah, I think that's massive. And I think, having those conversations regularly is a big deal. And, but I like that what you said about just having it clearly mapped out. Do you think that that's becoming more and more and more important then for people who are entering in? Like, have you just seen that as just becoming more of a priority than maybe when you started?
Yeah, I think people had more loyalty. If we go back and look at the concept of how often do people change careers in their jobs, it used to be a higher number of like 7 years. I don't think that's that way anymore. It's we are in a generation of instant gratification. Don't get me wrong, I'm that person too. We have this digital concept that people can get things right here, right now. I don't think that's any different in the job. They feel that they're doing really good, and maybe they are. But maybe their boss is too busy. So yeah, I'm seeing that more and more. And I think if we need to think about retention, it's not always more money either. That's the thing. Maybe it's more responsibilities. We talk about motivators with our candidates and clients. So with your candidates, it might be the clamps model. With your clients, it's make more money, save more money. But maybe with your employees, it's they want more responsibilities. They want a different job title. They want more money. There's different things for different people, but do you understand what those things are?
Yeah, 100%. I think, I know one of the things that's been coming up a lot recently is even just like work-life balance. And obviously you mentioned the unlimited PTO, and I've seen like the 4-day work week. It seems to be getting thrown around there a lot. But yeah, I mean, it comes down for me to just the pandemic and how it's just really shifted the mindset of people. And it seems like, at least from a lot of the content I'm seeing, there's talk about a great resignation. Everybody's trying to start a side hustle. Everybody's trying to monetize. Everybody's trying to get to that same place. And I do think that then it creates massive pressure on companies that are looking to retain. And that's not just within the recruitment industry. That's all over. What do you think for, the future of recruitment as a whole? I would love to just hear your thoughts on, do you think we're going to see more and more people kind of going independently and trying to like team up with other recruiters? Or I guess what do you see for the future of our industry in terms of the agency side? What do you think some of those trends are that we're going to see more and more in the future, if that makes sense? I want to leave it kind of open to you.
I don't know if I can call that. I think where we as an industry have to be creative. I mean, we got to the point that COVID hit, a year and a half ago, and so many people jumped into early retirement. Well, hopefully when this pandemic ends, are we going back to those people to say, hey, do you want to come back into this thing? But we have to be creative. It got to be creative whenever COVID hit. We have to continue to be creative. How are we getting to the markets of the Gen Xers and the Gen Zers to say, hey,
TikTok, that's the way.
I understand that. And that's one of the things, but like, you have to be at the click of a button. You have to be those places. So I think our industry is going to evolve rapidly. And the idea, we talk about the world, the concept of the social engagement. Absolutely. You're there, but it's how to get them on the phone. But then how do you go from TikTok to getting them on the phone? How do you make sure you're connected to the right audiences? How do you make sure you're geo-fenced within the right areas? IT is going to play a big big concept in this market. I know our IT team, as they're talking about things in their brains, it's just so interesting to hear. I really think our world will evolve. I don't necessarily know if everybody's going to turn independent or not, but I think it's how do we get in front of the right people at the right times. And I think that's going to take a creative bone to make sure we're doing that.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's so funny. I think, what about LinkedIn? You think LinkedIn is going to continue to play a massive part in recruitment, or could you see LinkedIn at some point? Because it seems like there's a lot of competition there. Like I've seen like Hire Tool is like a tool which I've seen, which it seems to be popping up. Seems like there's some other competition as well. Do you think LinkedIn will remain like a big power force in the recruitment space? What are your thoughts on that?
So far,
we're going to get shut off if you say the wrong answer too.
I don't necessarily think it's going to go away. I think they're going to continue to have more of a competition. However, you have those people that are stuck in their ways. Just like those people that don't want to get rid of Facebook. They're consistent, they're the steady. I don't necessarily think it's going to go away, but I think that platform, as long as you're pulling, maybe you put your TikTok videos. I know you do stuff like that. You put your TikTok videos on it, it will pull away from that platform in some capacity. Do I see it going away in its entirety? Not yet. I'm not saying it's not going to long term though.
Yeah.
Just a guess. I don't know. I really have no clue.
No, I think it'll be interesting because I know TikTok, they release like the job. I think it's like video jobs or applications that are like videos, which you can pop up there. But from a recruitment standpoint, I'm thinking, don't really want to watch like 1,000 videos from this application I did. And sometimes I think there's like a disconnect with what people think recruiters are doing and like how they source candidates and how they come across things. But I will say I ran into a developer the other day who's a software engineer, and he actually told me that a recruiter that wasn't putting out content commented on one of his videos, and then he kept on commenting, and then they had a conversation, and a month later he placed him at a different company. So I'm always, I think you said it, it's just being creative, and it's, I think, being open-minded as well to different things, but then also not going down the road of saying, well, this doesn't work, or this is old. Like cold calling is a perfect example of that. So I think as recruiters, it's just being flexible, and it's just realizing like, hey, people just respond differently to different things. What can I do to connect with them? Are you still doing anything on TikTok yourself, or still been using that platform?
Not in the capacity of learning yet. Of course, I go down my own rabbit holes with dog videos and whatever else that shows up on my stuff. But I think it's something that we've talked about in our organization about getting more involved, whether it's Instagram and TikTok, but having a place for those pieces. Some of the other people that are more creative, like yourself, whenever you're with us, but it was really the idea they're like, hey, let's figure it out. But I think that's really what it is. We talk about creativeness, but don't be married to one thing. Don't think that that's the only one thing that works. So use your content, reuse it different places, see what works, but really be honest with your analytics of what you're doing, so you're investing your time in the right places.
Yeah, 100%. I think the time management is massive, especially, in recruitment, but then if you want to start up your own business, it's the same thing. It's just being really stringent with your time and knowing where it's going, which obviously all of these social media platforms steal away all our time. Awesome. Well, what is any, and we could start wrapping up here as well. Any, I guess anything exciting coming up, anything that's worth mentioning on your end in terms of hiring? Do you have any hiring needs as well? I know there's a lot of people that watch this too that are potentially looking for something new. Like what do you guys have that's exciting right now that you're working on?
Yeah, I know our operating companies we have a talent acquisition team that's constantly hiring. So if you're in this space and you're interested, we do have an option and a platform with LinkedIn that we post all of our jobs. So on a rotating basis, there's 20 to 30 jobs open all the time. So we are actively hiring with all of our operating companies. So that's great.
Unlimited PTO too.
Unlimited PTO, come work for us. So I know my personal team has expanded from 2 to 5 over the course of this last year, just with me onboarding. So we are doing a lot of things. We have some major initiatives here at Talent Launch to be a $1 billion company by 2027. So that includes acquisitions. So we're also acquiring companies. So those people that are in that industry that say, hey, you know what, maybe I'm ready to get out, we're also acquiring. So there's so many exciting things going on within our network. It's really just, it's nice to sit back to say, I'm a part of this roller coaster ride. The ride's not over. I'm a part of the ride right now. So that's pretty exciting.
I love it. Where's the best people? Where's the best place that people can get a hold of you, and what's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you if they are interested, or if they want to connect and follow? What's the best place?
Absolutely. LinkedIn is probably the best place to go. My profile is pretty easy to find. It's public, Kortney Harmon. And you also can look on the Talent Launch website. So it's mytalentlaunch.com. So you can go to one of those two places. If you reach out to me, I'll be able to point you in the right direction, or you can also go to our LinkedIn profile or website, and all of our jobs are posted there as well.
Awesome. Well, anyone who's out there listening afterward, I will put the links to Kortney's profile as well in the chat. And then we actually did have one question here as well, so maybe we can address this and then we'll close down. But Kendra said, thoughts on candidate matching platforms. So what are your thoughts? Because I've seen a lot of these. We see these platforms all the time, and they're always telling us how they're going to replace recruiters. But what are your thoughts on technology like that, or any you recommend that you've seen that work really, really well?
We're not using any yet. I'm not saying that those things don't exist. I look at it in the form of career builders and LinkedIn's of the world. They're like, this candidate's better than this candidate. And it's really understanding how that data is getting pulled. Is it the keywords, the keyword that you searched is more in the resume versus another resume? I'm not saying it won't happen. I like to talk to every single talent that I've ever placed. I want to know that it's a personality match. I want to know what's important to them, because if I don't talk to them, or that process doesn't happen, and it could just be just like the social piece, it could get you to that conversation. But I really think that's where the retention, we talk about that being a major problem in today's workforce, is retention and keeping people there. I think if we rely on an algorithm, I think we'll continue to have that issue where we can't begin to influence and show value. So I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm not saying it won't play a part, but I still am a little old school and love the idea of being able to match my people with those orders. But I'm excited to see where that goes, to see if there's any quality ones that come up. But right now, I know we are personally not using any at the moment.
I mean, to me, I think those types of platforms as well. I'm always amazed with like where technology is and where it can go.
It's amazing.
It's just, I think the challenge with recruitment is when you look at even just how hiring is done or interviewing is done, it's all the person. It's always people and other people, and then you throw in the hiring manager in there, and you just throw personalities. There's a lot that goes in, and I do think that retention right now is hiring is obviously massive, but retention is it just seems like it's getting harder and harder. And so I would love some sort of algorithm that can measure predicted retention based on like interview questions or something. But it's cool to see. It's always cool to see where technology is. But then I do think with hiring in particular, obviously I'm a little bit biased because I was in recruitment and I still work with recruiters, but it's hard to see those questions and, like you said, the motivation and even just like BS detectors. Like it's so, it's hard to really, unless you've had 100 conversations, it's really hard to know where people are at. And I just think that's going to be a struggle, but hey, AI and technology is amazing. So
one of the tools that we are using is called Predictive Index.
Oh yeah.
Just a personality assessment, but we started using that and to say, let's put our job in here and let's see if that person fits within that job match. So that's something that we're able to even talk with our clients about, to say, maybe it's not that AI component, but this type of personality with this type of background and demeanor and drive as a whatever they are as a captain can really drive your sales organization. They're the right fit for the right seat. So I do see how that stuff goes in, but not the automatic parcel of things. But I think those assessment tools might be really something to show value for your clients. So if you're talking to anybody, that would be something to really use to bring your value to your organization.
Do you know what PI profile I am? You want to take a guess? Do you know the PI profiles?
I don't know all of them. I know. So what are you? I'm out of curiosity.
Maverick.
Oh, are you? Okay, so we're in the same quadrant.
Yeah, I'm like really low in detail, and it's like a straight arrow across. So, it actually was a curse when I found that out, because then I was just like, all right, well, I'm not good at detail. I'll just give up.
I think it's a good one though. It's a good driver. I'm a captain, so that might surprise you. Of course, of attention to detail and big pain in the butt. I'm really high and really low, both on ends. So
you remember when you used to give me homework, and then I was so bad with it. You'd be like, why isn't he sending homework over? I'm like, really bad with details. We did get one more question here as well, which I think is a good one. Laurie said, when there is a position available and there's several applicants, what can you do to make yourself stand out? I think this is always a good question. What two quick tips on how people can stand out if they are applying in just like one of those positions where there's hundreds of applicants? What are your top 2 tips?
Take the time to understand the organization that you're applying to. Try to understand. We have all these tools of social. We have all these tools of knowing what's going on. Show how you fit in there, but also ask questions. So many people are like, do you have any questions at the end of your interview? They're like, nope, I'm good. Well, they don't necessarily want someone that's going to just sit back. Sometimes they want the challenging person, but they also want to know how you fit into that organization. So whether it's you prompting the questions to feel that through, or whether you're writing your resume. I know so many people write a resume just in generic form to say, hey, I'm writing a resume. And they're using that same resume to 20 different jobs. make sure you fine tune it. Make sure it speaks to the values or maybe the initiatives of that organization as they're going through. So take the time. That would be my only suggestion. Take the time to ensure that you're meeting and you're hitting on the keywords that maybe they say on their website or they talk about on LinkedIn. Use those tools to your advantage.
Massive. I love it. And Kendra agrees. She said, do your research. She said it very nicely. Just do your research.
It seems so simple, but not everybody takes the time. They just assume, hey, I'm running really fast. I'm applying for 12 different jobs but I need you have to think quality versus quantity. And it goes back to quality of everything that you're doing to ensure quality of success.
100%. Yeah. And I always tell people, just try and actually avoid recruiters in terms of like just think like in-house, if you know that like in-house recruiters, they got a lot to deal with, just get a little bit more creative and figure out like who's actually hiring for the position, because typically speaking, the internal recruiters, they're involved in the process obviously on the screening side, but try and make some connections with other people in the company as well and try and become that referral into the company. So love that. Well, awesome, Kortney. I appreciate your time today. And I know we went a little over 40 minutes, but always brings so much value. And I appreciate all that you do in the industry as well. The one way that I like to end this out, and I might have to change this because we're a little bit deep into the pandemic, but we're coming out here. But if you just think back to like when you started in the recruitment and then when you've seen other people that you've trained, what would you say to somebody who's at that 6-month mark? They're thinking, is this right for me? I don't know. Like, should I keep on going through? Like, what would you say to that person who's in that position? What advice would you have for them?
I really would. I know sounds really basic. Look at the metrics. Look at the metrics of what you're supposed to be hitting. If you don't feel that you can hit that doesn't seem so unattainable, you don't enjoy your job, stop. Because if you want to be successful, this job has so many things to be able to be successful in this industry. But if you don't want to put in that time, you have a lot of money to earn. And if you say, I don't want to do that work to make that money, just stop right there. Don't assume, don't keep trying to jump through holes and hoops of whatever you need to get to, really, but take a step back, because it goes back to the metrics to say, in order for me to be successful, I need to be hitting 60 calls a day. And that's right there. That might stop everyone in their tracks to say, you know what, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can get to that. Whatever that looks like, whatever your metrics are at your organization, be honest with yourself. Don't dig your hole deeper. Can I hit those metrics? And if I can and I'm not enjoying it, then maybe that's not for you.
I love that. That's probably most of the time the advice, and I'm not going to rip on anybody else who's been through that question, but a lot of times it's like, just persevere, just keep going. But I think 100% right. Take a step back. Is this right for me? Can I meet this? And even just stopping. So I love that. Great advice. And you got so much great advice to bring as well. So I really appreciate you spending the time on the show. And hopefully in a couple of years I can do we can do another catch up here as well. So I appreciate your time, and everyone else who's out there as well. Kendra, appreciate all of your engagement. She just said, be persistent, get creative with different outreach. That was for people who were looking to stick out. We got Krista said, Maverick, great to see you, Krista. Laurie, great to see you. Kyle and Chris, everyone else who's out there, appreciate you all. Stay tuned for next week. We'll have another guest on as well, and I've got the announcement for that one coming on Friday. And Kortney, again, thank you so much for your time, and I will end the session here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was nice talking to you.
Yep, you too.
All right.